Welcome to my channel, detailing events throughout the decades. 1993. Waco Siege. The Branch Davidans were founded by Ben Roden in 1959. They moved to Mount Carmel Center Ranch in Axtell, Texas, not too far from Waco, where they continued to have a simple life. They were a religious group who were preparing for the imminent return of Jesus. In the mid-1980s, Vernon Howell became the community leader of the group. He would later be known as David Koresh. Not long after becoming community leader, David Koresh began taking spiritual wives, with some of these being as young as 11 years old. He believed he was entitled to take at least 140 wives, and claimed that any woman in the group was his. He fathered several children by many different wives. It was the allegations of child abuse and the amount of firearms that Koresh owned that led to the attention of the authorities. It was believed that the Branch Davidans were stockpiling weapons on the compound. The U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms went on to obtain an arrest warrant for David Koresh, and a search warrant for the compound. Authorities also believed that Koresh was also operating a methamphetamine lab on the compound. It was February 28, when more than 70 federal agents raided the compound. They had hoped that a surprise attack would be best, but this was lost when a TV reporter who was tipped off about the raid happened to ask for directions to the compound, and the person she asked happened to be Koresh's brother-in-law, who informed Koresh of the raid. A gun battle soon erupted between the federal agents and the compound, and it is still unclear who fired the first shot. It is reported that shots were heard inside the compound, but Branch Davidian survivors claim that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms were the ones who fired the first shots. On the west slope of the roof, 3 federal agents reached Koresh's window, but soon came under fire. One agent was killed and another was wounded. During 2 hours of gunfire, 4 federal agents were shot and killed, with more than a dozen injured. Along with this, 6 Branch Davidian members were also killed. It is reported that as many as 900 agents descended onto the compound, including FBI hostage negotiators. They made phone calls to Koresh trying to get him to surrender, but in one call, Koresh threatened to use violence. Koresh, however, did allow some followers to leave the compound, but it was thought that around another 100 remained inside the compound. The agents outside tried a number of different strategies to get those inside of the compound to come out. These included turning off the compound's electricity supply, playing Tibetan chants over a loudspeaker, and shining spotlights into the compound to disrupt any sleep. Days passed with no resolve to the situation. Negotiations were not going so well, and on one discussion, Koresh proclaimed that he was the second coming of Christ, and had been commanded by his Father in heaven to remain inside the compound. The FBI voiced concerns that they feared that the Branch Davidians might commit mass suicide, as had happened in 1978 at the Jonestown compound, even though Koresh denied any such plans when confronted by the negotiators. Those followers who had already left the compound also reported that they had not been any planning for a mass suicide. U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno finally gave permission for the FBI to raid the compound again, convinced that Koresh would not surrender, and also that Koresh was sexually abusing the children. The siege had been going on for 51 days. It was around 6 a.m. on April 19, when the FBI began firing tear gas into the compound. The Branch Davidians retaliated by firing back at those outside. For more than 5 hours, armored vehicles deposited around 400 tear gas canisters into the compound. At around noon, around 3 fires broke out simultaneously in different parts of the building, which quickly spread. It is believed that these fires were started deliberately by the Branch Davidians. At around 12:25 p.m., gunfire was heard from inside the compound. Firefighters outside had to stay back for a while for their own safety, as the fire engulfed the compound, and it was now beyond saving. 9 Branch Davidian members managed to escape, but the rest who were left inside, all died in the fire. The whole event had been played out on TV as reporters quickly arrived on the scene. After the fire, investigators went into the charred remains of the building, where they discovered 76 bodies. 25 of these were children. The fire investigator believed that many of those trapped inside had been denied escape, or they refused to leave. It was also found that several of the bodies had been shot, and hadn't died as a result of the fire. David Koresh was amongst the dead, and it is believed that he committed suicide by shooting himself. After the siege, the handling of the incident was highly criticized, and Janet Reno also expressed regret in authorizing the raid. It wasn't until 1999 that it was found that the tear gas which had been used in the raid was flammable. John Danforth was then appointed to investigate the raid, and this was concluded in 2000. He found that the federal agents had not caused the fire. On August 3, 1993, a federal grand jury returned a superseding 10-count indictment against 12 surviving Branch Davidian members. After the trial ended, the jury acquitted 4 of the Branch Davidian members on all charges. All of the Branch Davidians were acquitted on the murder-related charges, but 5 were convicted on lesser charges, including aiding and abetting the voluntary manslaughter of federal agents. 8 were convicted of firearm charges. Those convicted received sentences up to 40 years. But 6 of the Branch Davidian members appealed against these sentences and convictions. Several surviving members of the Branch Davidians, along with family members of those who died, brought civil suits against the United States government. However, most of these claims were dismissed, as there was no material evidence to support them. A memorial was erected for those who died in the fire at Waco. Today, nothing of the building remains, other than the concrete foundations, and a small chapel, which was built after the siege. The entire site was bulldozed 2 weeks after the siege had ended. Forever remembering all those victims who died during the 51 days. May you never be forgotten. Thank you for watching and learning about events throughout the decades. Please subscribe to my channel, to view other events from history.